Hey guys, Amanda here, Masters in Marriage and Family Therapy. Do you know what type of marriage you have? I usually like to give some characteristics, a definition for my clients who come and they're on the verge of divorce or wanting to make their relationship a little bit better. And so that's what I want to do with you here right now. I want to define some marriage types so that you can identify, and more so than that, so that you can know you are not alone. So we're going to give characteristics, define a little bit, why don't these people leave, Amanda? Why don't these people get a divorce? And then the good stuff, how to resolve if you are currently in this type of marriage. So there are 4. Today we're going to discuss 2, and then we're going to do a part 2 to cover the other 2. So I want you to watch all of them and identify, and all of your answers, all of your questions, let's say, will be answered in these 2 videos. I'm excited. All right, here we go. Grab your paper, grab your pens, as I always like to say, because you're going to want to write this down. All right, the first marriage we're going to define is what I would like to call the lonely marriage. The lonely marriage. Now, marriage, as you know, as I know, is an institution. It's a covenant that's between 2 people. However, in this marriage, there is only one person that's actually married. The other person is not really in it to win it. While one person is rolling up their sleeves and trying to make the marriage work, the other person has different dreams, different plans, different behaviors, attitudes. It's almost like this person hasn't understood fully what it means to be married to another person. They haven't understood marriage at all, actually. One is committed, the other one is still living the bachelorette or the bachelor lifestyle. You see, the Bible tells us an interesting verse here, and I want to read it to you guys, because to me, this marriage does not have that. The lonely marriage is the marriage where they're not friends, they're not companions, lovers, admirers. And there's a very big issue in this marriage, as you're going to see in the characteristics, so that you can further define if, hey, Amanda, this is exactly the type of marriage I'm living that you are describing right now. And the reason why things need to change is because look at how beautiful the Bible says. You know, the title here on my Bible says, the value of a friend. And in marriage, in a lonely marriage, there is no friendship. It's found in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, I'm going to read verses 9 through 12. It says this: 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. 2 people working is going to be more productive than if only one person is working. All right, Jesus, I like it. Keep going. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion, but woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him back up. Verse 11, again, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Oh man, so look at the things we're hearing here. We're reading 2 is better than 1. We're reading companion. If one falls, if there's one next to him, he'll lift him up. Even if you're cold, God is saying, if you have someone next to you, you guys can make each other warm. And that is true. You know, Renee and I love to open parentheses here and get excited about the trips that Renee and I did. But Renee and I were really into hiking together. And we decided to do different parts of the Appalachian Trail. So we would be called section hikers. We do little sections of the trail. And as we were there hiking the Appalachian Trail, there was one night that it was raining a lot and it was very cold. And what do you think we did? Renee's like, hey, let's make these 2 individual sleeping bags into one huge bag. And we just spooned each other the whole night, right? And we got warmer. Why? Because 2 is better than 1. Literally what the Bible is saying here. And then it ends up by saying this: though one may be overpowered by another, 2 can withstand him, and a 3-4 cord is not quickly broken. Right? Cords, when you have them all together, they're not quickly loosened, they're not quickly made apart. But when there's only one cord, there's no strength, there's no power. And so the Bible, if Jesus was here, talking to you about this type of lonely marriage, he would say it's not a marriage that he wants you to have, because 2 are better than 1. Okay, Amanda, I know that the Bible says that 2 are better than 1, companions, lovers, friendships, admirers. What are the characteristics? I think this is my marriage, but I can't be sure. Okay, the first characteristic in this marriage is that there is one partner who has a lack of commitment and responsibility. A lack of commitment and responsibility. They go through marriage saying, I'm going to do what I want to do when I want to do it. They take no responsibility when it comes to the marriage. And hear me well, they have a low emotional maturity. Whenever there's a problem, they jump ship. They figure that the other person will just handle it. The other person will figure it out, that they don't really need to participate. But then you know it's a good one? As soon as it's nighttime and someone wants to have sex, all of a sudden they are a willing participant in marriage. Listen, if you're not being nice throughout the day, now I'm going to speak to the women here, and again, this is generally speaking. If Renee's mean to me all day and at night he comes talking, hey babe, I'm going to say, get away from me. I am not having sex with Renee when he's being mean to me all day long. But when we're playful and we're having fun, then yeah, those things will happen. So a marriage is you participating in the not so fun things and then, reaping the awesomeness of marriage, which sex is on the first list there of most men and yeah, women as well. So in this marriage, there's a lack of commitment and there's a lack of responsibility. However, when they're going to reap benefits, all of a sudden they are willing participants. Now, I want you to think about this. I'm going to give you an example with one of my clients. Now, it's 2019. Sometimes we have the women working or the men working or both of them working. There's a lot of things that are happening on the day-to-day. I have the privilege of staying home with my boys and doing things online and over the phone, and I can stay with my boys all day long. And Renee goes out to work. Now, we both work, we both participate, we're both friends, companions. And so we figured out a way that when Renee comes home, I don't want to spend our time together honestly cooking. So I try to prepare the food so that when he's home, the food is already there. Not because, Amanda has to make the food because I'm working all day. No, we have put chores in such a way where he does things and I do things so that when we are together, we can just enjoy each other's time. The lonely marriage, you have one person who's working, they're with the kids, they're helping the kids with their homework, they're cooking, they're cleaning, they're doing everything all by themselves, all on their own. And this is not going to last. This person is killing themselves. They are going to get burnt out, stressed out, and I'm sorry, no one will be able to be married for this amount of time in a lonely marriage. Okay, Amanda, what's the next characteristic of the lonely marriage? It's literally what we just read. They're not partners, they're not companions. Whenever one is working, the other one is doing something else. Whenever one goes out, the other one is doing something else. They're not together, they're not lovers, they're not admirers. In fact, in this relationship, honestly, there really isn't a marriage. While you might be married on paper and the day-to-day, the trenches of what marriage is all about, you guys are not in it to win it together. And though this marriage is a marriage of one person, both people are suffering because this marriage cannot last. Okay, Amanda? The characteristics, I can identify with that. But why don't people leave? You might be watching and saying, okay, I don't identify with this marriage, but it does not sound like a good time, and it isn't a good time. So why don't they leave? Why are they still in this marriage? For a few reasons. So the first reason is maybe they got married out of strong passion, right? They were just deeply in love. Maybe they thought it was love and it was lust, and they were just a very passionate. They like big events, right? So proposing to someone, having a wedding, going on a honeymoon, these are all big events. But maybe you're the type of person that now you've become a little restless. And the personality or the characteristic trait that I would define as restless is someone that is constantly in search of a greater form of excitement. Someone who's always looking forward to the next activity. This person is constantly busy. They're rarely at peace, and they're constantly thinking, hey, when's the next big thing? Or, hey, by marrying this person, am I being left out? Am I not, hold on, let me say that better. Me being married to this person, am I missing out on someone else? Is there someone else out there that could be prettier, hotter, smarter, cooler, more exciting? And there's this constant turmoil in their mind, day-to-day thinking, what am I missing out on? I had a client, and this is exactly the situation that the husband found himself in. He was very restless. Whenever it was to go to a trip or to big events, he was in it. He was excited. But in the normalcy of the everyday life, in the normalcy of washing dishes and going to work and arguments that happen in marriage, he wasn't into it. He wasn't a part of it. And we figured out the why. And this is why I'm defining it for you. And this is why I'm telling you some of the reasons, so that you can identify, and maybe you'll have an aha moment and be like, wow, Amanda, that's exactly what's going on with me. You can identify with someone else and not think, no one is going through this. I am alone. My marriage sucks. No one understands. Yeah. There are a lot of people who are going through it, and there are a lot of people who can absolutely relate and understand your pain. And so, we started talking about history and family life, and the husband tells me that his parents, because they were immigrants, they had to work really, really tough. And throughout the entire week, they were usually gone. He didn't see them, basically raised by older sisters. He didn't see much of them, but he knew that there was always big events coming up. So at least once or twice a year, he knew that they were either going to go on a trip or on a cruise, or they were going to do something together for the holidays. And so his whole childhood was him just kind of getting through the days and the weeks and the months, waiting for, expecting, getting excited about these big events. So it makes sense why he was sort of restless, always waiting for the next big thing. Whereas the wife, she was like, wait, what? She had no idea. She's like, I didn't know all of this about you. I didn't know that you were thinking this way. And she explained then to him that her childhood was completely different. She loved the normalcy of every day because dad would come home early and he'd go biking with her, or they would do things together. They'd have family dinners, and the husband got tearful and he says, I have never had a family dinner. I have no idea what that's all about. And so they came together and they started to compromise. Okay, how can we make the everyday exciting? How can we make the everyday have things that we look forward to, like dinners together, or at night we're going to read a book together? How can we make it exciting? Also, while planning these trips throughout the year. And so they were able to come together and speak about these things. Now, what's another thing? Okay, Amanda, what's another reason why they don't leave? Maybe, right, strong passion, but they have a very restless characteristic personality. The next reason why in the lonely marriage it's hard for people to walk away or to get a divorce is, I'm going to use the word a mama's boy, but you can also use the word daddy's girl, right? Where it's grown-up adults, we'll call them. Adults who are so used to mommy and daddy taking on their responsibility and taking on their commitment. Remember, one of the characteristics was a lack of commitment and a lack of responsibility. So if you grew up in a household where your parents, saved your butt from a lot of things, where your parents always did for you that which you were capable of doing for yourself, and they did it for you, well, you think that life is shifting responsibilities to other people. And maybe you're married with a mama's boy, or maybe you're married with a daddy's girl, and your wife or your husband somehow thinks that you are capable of doing everything and that they don't really have to participate. And if this is the case, there needs to be a conversation around this. Are you married to a mama's boy? Are you married to a daddy's girl? And maybe this person is not even that they don't really want to be involved or they don't like to participate, but they're just used to someone else taking their responsibility. And maybe they just simply don't know how. So conversation is going to be needing to take place. We're going to get to the resolve in a second. What's the next thing? Number 3, maybe this person is having some type of emotional difficulty, whether they're experiencing anxiety or depression. I knew a couple, we did a premarital together, and the soon-to-be husband, right, he really struggled a lot with depression. Sometimes he would stay 3 days, in his room without being able to come out. And we were trying to figure out what would have to happen so that this marriage wouldn't become a lonely marriage where only one person is participating. Not only that, but there's so many different things that can happen. I remember another client, and they didn't date very long. Maybe they dated for a little less than a year, and they got married. And during the marriage, she noticed that they just couldn't connect at like this deep level that she was wanting to. He just had these little quirks and these little nuances that she didn't quite understand, and it was getting her frustrated. And she says, you know what, we need to go to counseling. They didn't come directly to me, so they lived far away. They went to counseling with a psychologist there. And the psychologist actually found out that he had a very high functioning autism. Isn't that amazing? Unbelievable. And so when she knew that, which is literally what I'm trying to do for you guys here today, as soon as she knew, oh my goodness, he has high functioning autism, she was able to work with him. He also had no idea. He says, oh wait, I do. And so some things that he thought was normal, she was like, hey, that's not what I'm used to, but now that I know you have like a high functioning autism, let's work together. And they went on and worked together in their marriage, and they made it work. So sometimes people just don't know. So if there's an emotional difficulty, find a marriage and family therapist, find a therapist, a psychologist, get together with your spouse and work on yourself, your emotional well-being, your self-care, so that you can be a better lover. Okay, the last one I have for you is sometimes the partner, the wife or the husband, they want the best of both worlds. What do I mean by the best of both worlds? It kind of connects with our number 2, right? Mama's boy or daddy's girl. It's the spouse who has not yet understood marriage the way God defined it in Genesis. Remember we did a video on that called In-Laws? You have to check it out. Surviving Your In-Laws. It's a great one. And in this video I started off saying that marriage is between two people, right? And that God commands people to leave, cleave, and become one flesh. Now, in this lonely marriage, what can be going on is that this person became one flesh, aka they had no problem having sex, right? But when it comes to leaving their in-laws, leaving their family of origin to create a new family, they didn't quite understand that. And so they keep going back to mommy and daddy. They're so very connected emotionally, physically, spiritually with their family of origin that it's hard for them to connect with their new family, leaving the other spouse lonely and doing things on their own. Usually in the lonely marriage, there is one spouse that has not fully detached from their family of origin. Okay, Amanda. So now, how do we resolve this? Now again, we don't have all the time in the world here, so I'm going to give you as much of information now so that you can do something literally today, right now. But please send me questions, whether it's through Instagram direct message or through Facebook a private message, send me questions. Amanda, hey, I identified with lonely marriage. Can you answer this, or can you touch base on this? Can you further explain this? I would absolutely love to do that. I'm here to help you guys. So how do we resolve? The first thing you can do is to reflect. Why did I get married? Was it because my mom and dad wanted me to get married to this person? Was it because I loved them then but I don't love them now? Figure out the reason. Have a frank conversation with yourself and figure out why you got married. That's the first thing I want you to do. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you're not being controlling. Okay, you're not being controlling. What does that mean? There's a lot of wives acting like mothers, and there's a lot of husbands acting like fathers. As soon as you're trying to control your spouse, control your husband, they're going through constant anxiety, constant frustration, and this causes resentment towards your partner, right? If someone is constantly criticizing me, if someone is constantly treating me with contempt, they're going to push me away. I'm going to start getting defensive, and then I'm going to start to stonewall. It's going to create self-doubt in me. I'm going to start feeling criticized, and I'm going to check out. Could it be that the reason why you are currently in a lonely marriage is because you are so overwhelmingly controlling, you're such a micromanager, that every time your husband or your wife tries to participate, tries to collaborate, tries to be your companion, you're like, oh, you don't do it good enough. I do it better. Oh, you're so annoying. You can't do it the way I'm doing it, so it's just better for me to do it on my own. Well, when you do that, that's exactly what's going to happen. You are going to have to do a lot of things on your own, and the Bible was clear. 2 is better than 1. And finally, the last tip here that I can give you, and again, check out the in-law video because it'll give you even more detail, is careful with the rivalry. Careful with putting yourself in a position where it's you against them. And by them, I mean, remember, one of the spouse has not been able to fully detach and disconnect with his family of origin. Don't put yourself in that position. So, hey, wives or husbands that have not been fully able to detach, keep your conversations, your arguments, and things that you go back and forth, keep it amongst yourself. Because unfortunately what happens is that The family of origin usually coddles the irresponsible one. Remember, mama's boy or daddy's girl, they're going to take on the responsibility that their son and daughter is capable of taking. So don't over-involve your family of origin. Find a third party, find a neutral party that can come in, that can help you, whether it's, a professional or a pastor or someone who can sort of mediate between the two of you, and don't bring and suck in your families. One of the things Renee and we always do, I say, listen, there's no such thing as perfect marriage. To me, the perfect marriage is the marriage of two people who are trying, who mess up, who fall down, who get back up, who go to God. Imperfect people who put their imperfect marriage in the hands of a perfect God. Okay, that's a perfect marriage. That being said, one of our boundaries, one of our ground rules, and this is a conversation that I want you to have as you try to resolve your lonely marriage, is, hey, let's keep our stuff between us, right? Let's keep our stuff between us. So I always told Renee, if something is going on between me and him, I'm not going to go to my mom and my dad and then talk bad about him. And he's not going to do the same. He's not going to, get upset with me about something and then run to mommy and dad and say, Amanda's this. Because even though sometimes it feels like my parents like him more than they like me, even still, you have a sort of, it's your child, right? My mom gave me life. That being said, if Renee starts treating me poorly or badly and I run to her and tell her this, she's not gonna like him very much, right? And here's the thing, usually couples will figure things out and they're, that same day they just fought, but they're already having sex, making love, making babies, and then their parents are over there on the other side, like super angry, super upset. You did this to my daughter, you did this to my son. So of course, if there's conflict going on, I'm not telling you to mask it or to hide it, but go to an appropriate person to help you and stop sucking in mommy and daddy into your issues. Figure it out together. All right, that was the lonely description. And there's so much more I can say, and I'm going to just hold and contain myself and wait for your question to give you even more details. Let's move on to the second marriage. Remember, we are discussing 2 right now, but there are 4, so part 2 is coming soon, coming next. It's a series. Okay. The next one is what I like to call the Instagram marriage. This marriage is a facade. It's false. It's superficial. There is no consistency there, right? Jesus, if he was here and if he would give this marriage a definition, I called it the Instagram marriage, right? There's no Instagram in Jesus' time. Jesus would call it the whitewashed tomb marriage. Amanda, what does that mean? So often Jesus found himself going back and forth with Pharisees. And at one time, the Pharisees came to him, and Jesus looks to him and says, oh, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. You are as whitewashed tomb, pretty and put together on the inside, on the outside, but inside you are decaying, you are dying. Things are not right with your heart. This is that marriage, the Instagram marriage. In front of the others, everything is okay and put together, but inside, there is no marriage. So in this marriage, both parties have succumbed to the belief and the idea that this marriage is impossible. It's not going to work. They've given up. They've given up to even try, but they've agreed that they are going to continue to play the house game, right? They're going to continue to pretend that they're married and everything is okay. The problem, though, in this fake, perfect marriage is that there is usually one who's not too happy with this deal. There's usually one who is suffering and saying, listen, I made the deal just for the sake of, but they're not really into being in this situation. And so then what happens? These two are pretending to be something they are not. Both are deteriorating. There's no way this marriage will deteriorate. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But there is one of the two that is dealing with it, that is finding this situation, this deal worse. What are the characteristics, Amanda, of this Instagram facade whitewashed to marriage? Here we go. The first one is that big fights are going on behind closed door. In front of the family, society, the community at large, or even in front of the children, they have found a way to control themselves to make it appear like everything is under control. But as soon as that door is closed, we're talking full-on fight. Outside, they're smiling, laughing, holding hands. You might look to this marriage and be like, oh, I would love to have their marriage. Look how kind he is. Look how pretty she is. Look at their kids. They're perfect. I wish I was them. Stop asking for other people's lives because you really have no idea what is going on. Be content with your life because someone else's life might appear to be everything that it is not. And so, this marriage, one of the big characteristics of it, the big fights behind closed doors, that abuse can also be taking place. Not only that, but intimacy is pretty much non-existent. And if there is intimacy, it's usually very aggressive, very violent. Why? Because when there is no emotional intimacy, it's hard for there to be physical intimacy. Remember our videos about the 5 C's that could restore your marriage? And it talks about before passion, there needs to be compassion. And when there's not compassion in your marriage, it's hard for the passion to be there. So there's a danger here in this marriage that abuse could be taking on. And if you are identifying right now, get help. Get professional help. You can do something today, right now. If you were just waiting to hear someone tell you something, a sign from God, this is it. Do something right now. Get out of this situation. Find a positive way to deal with this situation. The lonely marriage, remember I told you, sex is still taking place, but this marriage, sex is either non-existent or it's very aggressive and violent. What's the next thing here? The next characteristic of this marriage, the Instagram marriage, is that it's a very much individualistic marriage. 2 people are living separate life. They're roommates, right? They're passing by each other. So imagine that the husband went off to a trip and then the wife stayed here. And then the wife goes off to a trip and the husband stayed here. They make activities and plans that are separate. They don't share the same goals, the same dreams, the same aspirations. It's usually the case where they're trying to be away from each other. The moments that they have to, remember, to put up the front of the perfect marriage, so maybe they're together on the weekends when it's with their friends or on holidays because the whole family's going to be there, so they're just going to have to suck it up and act like they like each other in these moments. But there's no love, there is no respect, and these are 2 people who are living very separate, individualistic lives. They don't like each other. They don't want to be around each other. Why don't they leave? Amanda, that sounds miserable. That does not sound like a good time. Leave. Now, if you are in this marriage, you understand exactly why leaving would be very difficult and leaving would be very hard. And there are again, this is not an exhaustless list. By all means, send me a message and say, Amanda, you mentioned these reasons, but I'm in this marriage and I'll tell you the reason why I haven't left. Oh, I'd love to know why you haven't left. So the first one is maybe they're Christians. Maybe they're of a faith. And the concept of divorce, and they say, listen, we can't get a divorce. And what would the church think? What would our community think? We are leaders in the church. We need to be married to participate in the church. For whatever reason, leaving is difficult because they're Christians. Another thing, this is one I hear so often. Amanda, my marriage sucks. We hate each other. We are the Instagram marriage, but we can't divorce because of the kids. We can't divorce because of the kids. Well, Amanda, statistics shows, right? Kids who grow up with divorced parents, they struggle. They have a hard time. We can't do that to our family. And that's exactly what a father told me who was living through this Instagram marriage. And I said, okay. And so I asked him a question. I said, I understand that you're doing this for the well-being of your children. That being said, would you want your children to have the same marriage that you have with your wife? And he said, so help me God, absolutely not. I would not pray this marriage on my worst enemy, he said. And I said, well, unfortunately, that may happen because it's what your children are seeing. You are mirroring to them every single day that marriage is a facade, that it's an Instagram, that it's superficial, that you can pretend to be something out there that you are not. And kids aren't dumb. They're going to start picking up on it. They know, they have a sense that things are not right. And so I said, I'm not suggesting you get a divorce by all means, but I'm suggesting that if you are truly here because you want to make a difference in your children's life, but you're not willing to change and to make things better, to make a solution besides lying, then you are doing to them more harm than you are doing good. And it's like, boom, like light bulbs went off. He's like, I've never thought about it like that. So if this is the case where you're doing it for your children, but if they are living in this toxic environment, if they are living this fraud that you are making them live with you, do something about it. You do not have to be in a marriage like this. It can change. The other reason, and I think this is a big reason, is honestly the financial just pounding you are going to get. Divorce is very, very, very expensive. And a lot of people say, listen, Amanda, I honestly can't get a divorce because I can't afford to get a divorce, is what they say. How can you imagine? I want to get a divorce, but I can't because I can't afford it. And usually maybe money is tied up to a family business and different people run it. And how would we do it? The business, it's everyone's face, the whole family, and people know us for a long time. I'm going to lose clients, money, money, money. Now, all of these reasons that I just gave you of why someone would not leave the Instagram marriage is not a good reason at all. In fact, it's a horrible reason, and it's a lie. You need to find, how do we start resolving these things? You need to find the right reason to stay in this marriage. Because if you do not, you are going to start experiencing, if you are already not experiencing, physical pain, mental pain. You are literally going to get sick. I had a wife who was experiencing this type of marriage here, this Instagram, this facade marriage, and talking to her and coming up together, what are we going to do? And she finally did the first step here and the resolve, which is have a frank conversation. Say, be clear, set your boundaries, say what you want, what you like, what you don't want to like. Say, I can't live like this anymore. And after she had this conversation, she literally said, Amanda, it was like just a heaviness, a burden just came out of me. I can finally breathe clearly. I can sleep at night. Why? Because for the first time in her life, she was no longer living a lie. And this lie was destroying her own soul. It was destroying her physical, her mental, and her spiritual health. I want to read 2 verses here in the Bible for you. The first one is Luke. These are the words of Jesus himself. I mean, the whole Bible is the words of Jesus himself, right? But, it's like in red. So Luke 8, verse 17, it says this. For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. Oh, my beloveds, it is only a matter of time before you get found out. And maybe you've been doing it for a long time, Amanda, no one's ever going to know. God knows. And then you know. You know that you are living a lie and you cannot live like this anymore. Who are you faking? Who are you pretending? We have one life to live. Why live it in this situation? You can do something today about it and say, Lord, please help me live with integrity. Lord, I don't want this to be a part of my marriage. Help me do this in such a way so that I can do better, so that I can get more, so that the verse in the Bible that says that God came to give us life and life in abundance can be fulfilled in my life. All right, that's number one. Have a frank conversation. A pastor, a therapist, someone that you trust. Bring it together, mediate. Sit down with your spouse and say, listen, I love you too much, and I love myself too much to allow us to live like this any longer. The next thing, compromise. Pray, fast, bend your knees, and say, Lord, help me compromise. Be flexible. Be willing to see things differently. Put on a new lens. Decide that from this day forward, you're gonna do things differently. Compromise. And finally, the last one. Get rid of some of these expectations that you might be having. Stop waiting for the other person to do in order for you to do. Stop waiting for your husband to say, hey, you know what, I can't live like this anymore. Stop waiting around for the divorce to happen. If you don't like the situation you're in, you do something about it. Don't expect the other person to do anything about it. And I always like to think of this. Marriage is a tricky thing. And I say this to myself all the time. I got married to Renee to make sure that he is the happiest person in the world. And then I pray to God every single night that he is thinking the same exact thing I think he is. Gandhi says it like this: the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So you be the doer, you be the giver, you be the one who has the frank conversation, you be the ones who starts putting all your ducks in line to make sure that you are not living the Instagram marriage. And then 2 things are going to happen. There's only two things that could possibly happen. Number 1, you can either, man up, woman up, and say, listen, I'm not going to live like this anymore. And then you can pray and you can fast and you can get a counselor or a therapist, and you're going to start seeing changes in your marriage. Or you can do all these things and your husband or your wife is going to say, yeah, I don't want any part of this, and they're going to leave. because when you are light, darkness and light cannot coexist in the same place. Either you're going to turn on the light and he's going to say, oh, I can see again and I want to be in light. Or you're going to turn on the light and he's going to say, I cannot stand being in this place. And he or she is going to leave. Well, one thing is for certain. This is going to get resolved. All right, guys, that's it. I've said everything I needed to say. So today we discussed again the lonely marriage and the Instagram marriage. If you identify, use these 3 things here, the resolve, and implement this right now so that you can start seeing a change in your marriage. And I have something exciting to tell you guys. This week or next week, we're trying to get the dates figured out, but we are going to do a live. We're trying to figure out all the nuances and how we're going to do it but it's going to be in a social media platform. So if you're already not following me on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, I want you to follow on all of those platforms because a live is going to come. You're going to be able to ask questions privately. No one is going to see that you're going to be asking those questions. And then just, me sitting here in my room, in my office, and having a conversation, very light, and going back and forth and answering some of the questions that you all might be wrestling with and struggling with. So I hope that you can participate. I'm looking forward to your questions, and I really can't wait. I hope this video was useful to you. If it was, remember, like, share, subscribe, and share it with your families and share it with your friends. I'll see you next time.